20 pieces of silver was what Joseph's brothers decided he was worth to them. He was not a stranger, neither was he an enemy to them. His own blood, the ones who grew up beside him, who knew his name before the world did, who sat at the same table and heard the same father's voice, and yet, they counted out the coins and handed him over without looking back. There is a wound you can never explain. It may come wrapped in familiarity, in shared history, in the face of someone who should have been safe. Betrayal from an enemy is painful, but betrayal from someone who knows you is something that settles into a different part of you entirely, somewhere harder to reach and far harder to name. What the word says about it. Genesis 37 verse 28 records the moment without softening a single detail. The traders were passing and the brothers of Joseph pulled him up from the pit they put him in, a price was agreed, and Joseph was delivered to strangers heading toward a land he had never seen. The text does not dress it up or offer an immediate comfort. It simply tells you what happened because what happened was real. Then Midianite traders passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they brought Joseph to Egypt. Genesis 37 verse 28 NKJV. What strikes you when you sit with that verse long enough is how ordinary the transaction sounds. Traders passing, price agreed, a boy delivered, but behind that ordinary language is an act of cruelty carried out by people who were supposed to be family. Joseph did not end up in Egypt because of strangers. He ended up there because of the people who knew him best and chose to discard him anyway. Here comes the interesting part. The God who watched that happen did not look away. He did not abandon Joseph the moment the brothers pocketed their silver. Romans 8 verse 28 gives us the theological anchor for everything Joseph's story would become. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Romans 8 verse 28 NKJV. All things, including the betrayal, the sale, the journey to Egypt in chains, and the years of silence that followed. God was not scrambling to repair what the brothers had broken. He was already working inside what they thought they had destroyed. The transfer they thought was a transaction. What Joseph's brothers intended as a transaction, God treated as a transfer. They thought they were disposing of a problem, erasing a dreamer whose vision made them uncomfortable. But from where God was standing, they were simply moving Joseph closer to the place he needed to be. That is not a small theological point. It is a declaration about the nature of sovereignty itself. It means that even when human beings make choices driven by jealousy or cruelty, God does not lose the thread. He does not panic. He works within the mess, around the mess, and sometimes directly through it to bring his purpose to completion. The brothers thought they were closing a chapter. Instead, they were turning a new page for Joseph. When the betrayal came from someone close. You may not have been sold into slavery, but you may know what it feels like to be handed over. Handed over to a season of pain by someone who promised to stay. Handed over to isolation by a community that should have embraced you. Handed over to uncertainty by a decision someone else made that you had no say in. The details are different. The sting is the same. What makes betrayal from someone close so disorienting is that it rewrites what you thought was true. You replay conversations in your mind, you look for the moment you missed, you wonder what was real, and what was the fake smiles. Underneath all of that is the quiet, terrifying question: if they could do this to me, what does that say about my worth? What does that say about my future? Here is what it says: nothing. It means nothing about your worth and nothing about your future, because the person who betrayed you never had the authority to determine either of those things. God has not lost the record. When you are betrayed, it can feel as though something irreplaceable has been taken from you. A relationship, a season, a version of your future you had started to believe in, and the enemy will use that feeling to convince you that the damage is permanent, that you are now less than you were before it happened. But God keeps a different kind of record. Every promise He has spoken over your life is still on file. Every dream He placed in you before other people decided it was inconvenient is still intact. The 20 pieces of silver did not cancel the coat. The sale did not silence the dream, and whatever has been taken from you by someone who should have protected you has not cancelled what God has already spoken. What they sold was never theirs to take. Joseph arrived in Egypt with nothing but his life and the dreams his brothers had tried to sell along with him. He had every reason to conclude that God had gone quiet, that the promises were dead, that the betrayal was the final word, but that was not the final word. It was the first sentence of a completely different story, one that his brothers had no authority to write or to end. The same is true for you. The person who handed you over to pain did not hand you over to God. They handed you to a season, and seasons change. What looks like an ending from where you are standing is often the exact place where God begins his most careful and precise work. He is not alarmed by what they did, neither was he surprised by it, and he has not revised his plans for you based on their decision. You are not less valuable because someone assigned you a price and moved on. You are not forgotten because someone chose to forget you. God still has the receipt. Every promise, every word, every dream he placed in you is still on record, and not one of them has expired. Joseph's story did not end in that pit, and it did not end on that trade route to Egypt. It was just beginning. This should give you hope that wherever you find yourself today, whatever was taken, whoever took it, and however long ago it happened, your story is not over. God has not given up on you, and the betrayal that felt like your undoing may yet turn out to be the road that led you exactly where he always intended you to be. Today's post was titled "They Sold Him, but God Still Had the Receipt." Share it with someone close to you now. God bless you.